So, Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Present, an interview series by youth for youth. Our guest today is Brother Omar Tawfik. Omar is a sophomore at the University of Maryland and the former director of ILIA's Youth Crisis Line, a 24/7 hotline service that is open to provide all youth with aid to any crisis they face. From collaborations with the Howard County Public School Administration to partnering with several Islamic schools in the area, such as Dar es Salaam and MCS, Ahmad dedicated his efforts to establishing and strengthening the Youth Crisis Line. So Jazakallah you, Brother Ahmad, for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Wayakum.
So I know with your previous time here at ILIA, you were very involved with the Youth Crisis Line and just mental health in general. So I want to ask you, why is that?
So coming from sort of a culture where mental health is kind of stigmatized and it is very rarely spoken of. It is, and I've seen a lot of people go through it, especially having previously gone to an Islamic school. I've seen a lot of people go through a lot of things, and a lot of these things are gone unaddressed from the teachers, the administration, the parents. None of them really know how to tackle the idea of mental health, especially in the Muslim community, in the Arab world. So I've kind of set it as my goal to sort of slowly crack through that stigma and educate people on what mental health really is and how can there be solutions to it, as opposed to just telling your child to read the Quran and everything will be okay.
So why do you think that mental health is seen as like taboo in like the Muslim and the Arab community?
That's a great question. I've kind of been asking myself this as well for the last few years. I think it partially has to do with the idea that, especially when it comes to men, for example, typically in the Arab world, men are told, not to cry. You're fine. I raised you to be a man. All these different phrases, and so it becomes much harder for a guy to sort of get that help. And so I definitely do think it's from previous generations, I guess, because our parents raised us the way they were raised. So that's all they know. They only know how their parents raised them. In addition to that, a part of it I feel like is religious to some extent, because in the Quran, we're in the Sharia in general, we're told how to deal with difficult moments, when we're feeling a certain way, when we're kind of down and not having, a good day. So a part of it is, pray and you'll be fine. But especially growing up, you don't necessarily have that connection fully established with Allah. And so it's not as easy to feel that relief that, an adult would feel, for example, someone who has gone through a lot more when it comes to sort of a spiritual journey. And so I feel like it is a combination of the way the culture is implemented or the way kids are raised, but also a religious aspect comes into play as well.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think it's essential to have a service like the Youth Crisis Line in our communities?
As I said earlier, the Youth Crisis Line provides not only a 24/7 free service hotline for anyone and everyone, but it also works with another program that we have at ILIA, the Empower One program, which provides an excellent youth coaching service, because you can call the hotline, get the help that you need, but sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you need someone to keep calling you, keep track of progress, etc. And that's what the coaching program is for. And that's that sort of direct treatment, or that direct, sort of one-to-one, face-to-face contact that can definitely make a huge difference, especially when we live in, the Western world. And so our parents are trying their best to keep us to the deen and sort of keep us involved in our culture and our religion. And you don't get as much access to psychiatric treatments that are professionally tested and everything, because you're kind of closed in a sense by that sort of strict religious environment that you may be placed in. So I definitely do think it's important, because you have the Muslim suicide rate has been increasing year on year, and it is very sad, and no one's getting the help that they need. And Islamic schools are not doing it. The adults in the communities are not doing it. The mosques are not doing it. So we need someone to do it.
So actually, with now the whole pandemic, some Muslim communities and some Islamic schools have been getting together, and they're talking about mental health more, having webinars and workshops. So personally, do you think this is enough? And if not, what more do you think they could do?
So I really do admire how some communities have done that, and I've attended some of them, and I really did enjoy them. And I think it is a huge first step. And I think, it didn't, like, COVID didn't have to come for this to happen or become a first step. But alhamdulillah, now that we actually are starting to do these things, it's definitely not enough. Talking about it through webinars is not enough. You need funding for these programs that do help one-on-one personal coaching and counseling to youth, because you can get these webinars, you can listen to them, but it's the same thing as listening to any lecture. You can get the information, it's going to be very vague information, but sometimes you need help that's specific to your situation. And every situation is different, every person is different, every person retains information differently. Although it is good to, it is a big, huge first step, but it's not enough. And I think there's a huge way to go when it comes to providing these services for the youth.
And speaking of getting help, some people, when they're struggling with their mental health, they're often shy and they don't feel like they can go up to an elder or a sheikh or parents or a friend even to get some help. So, how do you think we could encourage them to seek out for help?
One thing that I definitely suggest is start writing when you do have these thoughts, and you are going through a tough time. Start writing it on a piece of paper. That's something that I personally have started doing, and it's a very great coping mechanism. And then based on that, you can use that sort of clear your mind and get you in a more relaxed, calm mindset. And as time goes on, you'll get more and more comfortable releasing that information to someone who you trust. And another thing is that I've heard from several youth that I've talked to in the past, when I was during my time at ILIA, at the youth crisis line, was people feel judged, especially by elders in the community, in the Muslim community. They are judged, and they're scared to talk about emotions and very sort of taboo things that you don't feel comfortable talking about. And if you have strict parents, you can't talk to your parents. Your friends don't really provide much help to you either, because they're not necessarily professionally trained in psychology or any field that can definitely help you in the long term. So as I said, start writing on a piece of paper, sort of in an essay format if you really want to. Just write everything you're thinking, write everything down of how you feel. And then slowly over time, you get to be more comfortable with yourself, addressing these problems, figuring out the problem. And then over time, finding a trusted adult. Could be a family friend, could be a sheikh whom you're really close with that you grew up with, could be a parent. It kind of depends on who you're comfortable with in your life. And every case is different. So that's something that I personally have started implementing, and it's been a huge effect.
So you mentioned how like friends are not, they don't have that professionalism, they're not equipped to help with such mental health disorders, right? Say example, like I had a friend who's struggling with mental health, right? A friend. How should I deal with that?
So definitely keep talking to her. Don't let her sit or by herself, when especially when you know the thoughts come in. So was it's nighttime or whatever. Don't let her sit by herself just thinking. Always check up on her on a day-to-day basis, morning and night. Always make sure she knows that there's someone there for her. Provide her that comfort. Maybe hang out, maybe go out sometime, maybe play some games. Do whatever you need to do to sort of keep her in a somewhat stable or semi happy, I guess, mindset. And if you see it becoming more and more severe, try and reach out to someone who you know is a trusted adult or a trusted source for them, and try and do it, more directly that way. But it's definitely keeping them company, keeping them comfort, let them know that they're not alone in the struggle that they're going through, and that there's a lot of things in life to appreciate, and trying to help her sort of shift that mindset from looking at the glass rather half full than half empty, for example. So it's kind of a day-to-day thing, and every case is different. Some cases are more severe than others, but keeping them comfort, and always letting them know that you're there for them, that can definitely have a huge emotional impact on the way they think and the way they feel.
And so, generally speaking, what advice would you give a teen who is independently and silently struggling with their mental health?
I would say try and get yourself busy with something that you're passionate about, whether it's business, working, art, martial arts, sports, whatever the case is. Try and use that energy that you have, take it out on something that's productive and positive. And what that does is it kind of shifts your attention away, and it gives you more time to be more relaxed, as opposed to being in constant sort of anxiety. And so put your energy towards something productive. Alhamdulillah, it's a new year, and there's a lot of things that you can do. And there's a lot of suggestions and advice that the counselors and coaches at ILIA give you, and that's something that's definitely helped me in the long run. A couple of years back. In addition to that, you can get yourself busy with something that will have an impact, because when you ask someone, hey, what do you want to do with your life, the usual answer is, I want to make an impact on the world. A lot of that can be done through internships, just volunteering. Getting that experience not only will help you academically, like in sort of a materialistic fashion, but also will definitely contribute to your mental health, because it gives you a purpose in life. It gives you something to do. Another thing is, try your best to connect with Allah, and try your best to make sure that that connection is strong and it gets stronger. Don't just settle on what you have now. Don't ever think that it's enough. You always can progress, you can always improve, and that connection with Allah, as it gets stronger, that feeling of relief and peace will come as time goes on.
And with that, I just want to say Jazakallah khair. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to add about anything we've spoken so far?
No, I think I've said a lot, and I don't want anyone to struggle in silence or suffer in silence, because in most cases that never usually ends well. And so please try and seek help. Please try and just, even if something very minimal, please try and know that you're not alone in your struggle, and you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there for you. There's a lot of people out there going through very similar experiences, and know that you have a purpose in being on this earth. Allah created you for a reason, and please continue doing what you're doing.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you for such beautiful words, insight, and advice. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Jazakallah khair.
Yakum. Assalamu alaikum. Have a great day.
Alaikum salam.